everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I will be covering most commonly asked MySQL questions in this video with answers. So I will not be going in detail of the SQL topics covered in this video. So this video is only for interview perspective. I have tried my level best to cover most of the questions. However, there are some instances where you may ask some questions which are not covered in this video. So these questions only for software developer up to 4 years. If you are looking for something related to DB admin role, you may not find some questions in this video. Okay, let's start. So what do you mean by SQL and RDBMS? So SQL is structured query language where you will write some queries. When it comes to RDBMS, relational database management system, so you can call it as a table. There are many tables, so those tables are related to each other. So a table is an entity. So whenever you are going for an interview, let's say for application developer or software developer, so first set of questions will be based on your programming language. So once that over, interviewer will focus on SQL. So you must be good in SQL in order to clear the interview. If you do not know SQL, then it is kind of negative impression from the interviewer. So let's get into the most commonly asked questions in SQL. So you may have seen first question, like it cannot be first, so you may get asked, interview may ask what is the difference between DDL and DML. So when it comes to DDL, data definition language, what do you mean by data definition language? Let's say data definition in the sense you are going to give the definition to your data. So it can be a create table, it can be alter, it can be truncate. So what do you mean by DML? So DML is data manipulation language. So let's say you have created table, you want to play around it. You want to add some data to that, you want to delete some data, you want to update, so that will come under DML, data manipulation. You are updating the data, you are deleting the data, or inserting the data, that you call it as manipulation. So there are two more, so that I am not going to cover because those are all used very rarely. One is DCL, another one is transaction related thing. So next get into the next commonly asked question, what is the difference between delete and truncate? So since both these commands does the same thing, then what is the difference? So when it comes to delete, you can delete entire row, all the rows in a table, or you can delete one row in a table. So when it comes to truncate, it normally truncates entire data inside the table. So you can roll back the data after using delete statement. So basically you can use transactions inside a delete query. So if something goes wrong, you can roll back it. So when it comes to truncate, it cannot be rolled. You cannot roll back the data. So as I said in the previous question, so it is an DML command, delete, data manipulation. You are manipulating the data. When it comes to truncate, you are defining, so clear everything. So it is a DDML command. So one more important difference between delete and truncate is delete is slower than truncate. So this is one point, if you tell properly, so interviewer will not ask any questions related to this. So truncate is very much faster when it comes to performance, delete is not. It is slower compared to truncate. So let's get into the next question. So what is the difference between group by and where? So where basically used to filter the records before any grouping takes place, that is on single rows. So when it comes to group by, aggregates or groups the rows and returns the summary for each group. So when you are using group by, you can use having is used to filter values after they have been grouped. So let's get into SQL how we can do this. So I have written a query, select star from employee. So in this table I have 4 records with name and department ID. So in this thing you have common department ID 1, 1 and 2, 3. So let's see how we can do this where and group by. So I am filtering with where. See, I am getting 1, 1. There are 2 records. So I cannot use group by here. So let's see how it works. See, employee.employee ID is invalid in the select list because it is not contained in either aggregate function or group by class. So if you use department ID here, so it works fine. Are you sure? See. So this is the difference between group by and where. So I just told one more word, having. So let's see how it works. So you want to group the data with some conditions. So I will be selecting select star from employees. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Here in this I have two records which are from department 1. So how we can get this data using having and grouping. So I have written select department ID from employees, group by department ID, having count department ID greater than 1. So count of department ID greater than 1, we are grouping it. So let's see what is the outcome of this is a query. So say department ID is 1. If you enter anything here, so let's say I am going to take employee ID here. So we'll see this will work. It will not work because it is not contained in either aggregate or not. So if I put here group by, so this should work, right? You will see there is no data because there is no group employee ID which is having, we are grouping it by employee ID plus department ID. So if you remove this also, you may get, will you get result? Let's see. You may not because department ID is not. So whenever you do group by and having, you must specify that in the department, you must specify in the select statement, or else you can also use something like min, max, sum. So these common inbuilt functions you can use when you are doing group by and having. I hope you have understood what is the difference between group by and where. So let's get into the next thing. So I will repeat it. So where is used to filter records before any groupings takes place, that is on single rows. When it group by, we normally use aggregates or groups the rows, returns the summary for each group. So having is used to filter the values after they have been grouped. You just saw this. So next get into duplicate records. So I just explained how we can get duplicate records. So these questions, this query interviewer may ask when you tell group by. So how do you group some data, let's say as I said employee data or orders table, how do you group which are having more than one record? Let's say there is some order ID, then order number and something, there are some columns. So how will you get those things? So in this case select order ID, count of order ID. See, as I said, if you use group by, you should use aggregate functions. So count of order ID from orders, group by order ID. Since I am using in select statement, I am specifying this, and having count greater than 1. So this will basically filters out duplicate rows. So next, what is the difference between primary key and unique key? So this is the common questions whenever you go to interview, this will be asked. So when it comes to primary key, so both are same, right? Both are unique. So what is the difference? So there are differences, right? When it comes to primary key, used to serve as a unique identifier for each row in a table. So still, unique key also does the same thing, but it is not a primary key. So null value acceptance. When it comes to primary key, it will never accept. Primary key will not accept null values. When it comes to unique key, it will accept the null values. So number of keys that can be defined in the table, a table should have only one primary key. When it comes to unique key, there can be multiple unique keys. So what is the index? So you know, right? When it comes to SQL, when you create a primary key system, database automatically creates clustered index. So when you go with unique key, it will create non-clustered index. We'll go in detail with indexes in the coming slides. So let's say on that time I was explaining what is the difference, how you can find nth salary, right? How you can filter out duplicate records. Now I will be going to one more query, how you can find nth salary, where n is, let's say you have a table with the 10 records of employers, where their salary you want to find who is getting more salary. So in this thing, this is nothing so simple. So you will have to inner query, select ename cell dense rank over order by salary or where primary, where employee from employee, where r is equal to n you can enter anything. So this is the subquery from main query. I'm using main query inside, I'm using subquery inside main query. So we'll go into what is dense rank. So let's say you will have some records, you want to assign some rank based on some column property. So dense rank computes the rank of a row in ordered group of rows, returns the rank as a number. So in this case there are multiple ways we can do this nth salary. So let me tell you how we can do this in different way. So first you have to select, I do not have the table, so I will just write the query here. Select star from salary order by descending. If you do this, so it will take descending, means order by salary descending. So salary descending means, let's say 10,000, 9,000, 8,000, that how it comes. So now I want to select top 3 row. Now top 3 salary from salary table. So let me put it as star from salary table. So now I have got top 3 records which are having top 3 salaries. So now I will have to write one more query, select salary from, this is my query. That's it. So this will take top 1. This will give you top 1. So there are multiple ways you can write it, but for interview perspective I am giving you some very good answer like dense rank. So if you tell dense rank, so interviewer will not ask any more questions. If he may ask what do you mean by dense rank. So dense rank computes the rank of a row in an ordered group of rows, returns a rank as a number. So this function accepts argument as any numeric data type and returns number. Please keep this in mind when you are using dense rank. You should know that one thing, like you are using over the number. Next, so dense rank computes the rank of each row returned from the query with respect to the other rows based on the values of the value expression in the order by class. See one thing here. So order by salary descending. So that is what we did in my previous query which I just shown to you. So that is what it is specifying. Third point, in the above query the rank is returned based on the salary of employee table. In case of tie, it assigns equal rank to all rows. If there is two things, if there are two matching 10,000 10,000, then it assigns 1 1. It will not be 1 1 2, it will be 1 1, next will be 3. So that is how it works normally. So this is what dense rank. I just wanted to cover this word dense rank. So if interviewer asks how you can find, you just give this query. He may ask dense rank, so you just tell this. So let's get into the next question, very important question, union and UnionAll. So what is the difference between union and UnionAll? So basically both does the same thing, right? Then what is the difference? There must be difference. So when it comes to union, it combines the result set from multiple tables and returns distinct record into the single result set. Keep this word, distinct records. When it comes to UnionAll, it combines the result set from multiple tables but returns all the tables into a single result set. So if you want to know the syntax, so basically we normally write select star from table 1 and union select star from table 2. So when you are doing union, you should know column list should be same. When it comes to syntax, it remains same. So it has a default feature to eliminate the duplicate rows from the output. As I said in the first difference, so it will eliminate the duplicate records. It has no feature to eliminate the duplicate records from the output. Since it basically does some duplicate record filtering, its performance is slow when it comes to union. So it does not do any duplicate record removal, so performance is fast. So that is the difference between. So when it comes to one more difference is there that I have not put here. So when you are using UnionAll, column order should be same. Keep that in mind. So one difference is return distinct records and returns all records. Performance wise it is slow, performance wise it is fast. Which is fast? UnionAll. So let's get into the most important one more question: functions and store procedure. So what is the difference between functions and procedures? So a function has a return type and returns a value. If you create a function, it should have return type. When it comes to procedure, you no need to specify a return type, but it returns value using the out parameter. So we'll see what you mean, what I mean by function. So if you open any of your database, so let me check. So function, if you go to scalar function, see modify, so it basically returns, see this is, I'm just giving already existing returns. So return statement must be there when you are using store procedure, sorry, when you are using function. When it comes to store procedure, you don't have to specify. If you specify something with out, it will be taken as output. See, for every function there must be some return type. So let's get into the second one. You cannot use function with data manipulation query. So what do you mean by data manipulation query? Insert, update, delete. So only select queries are allowed in the functions. When it comes to procedure, you can use DML queries such as insert, update, select with procedures. A function does not allow output parameters. So when it comes to function, it always returns, but it will not allow output with keyword output. So when it comes to procedure, allows both input and output parameters. So when it comes, let's see how this can be explained. So let me take any, see this is my input parameters and this is my output. See, I have said drop table we can use. So this is dynamic query. It looks very difficult. Okay, so this looks very simple. Nope. Okay, so here I'm using insert into temp table and I'm returning it. See, select. So select will basically return. So that is the difference between function and procedures. So when it comes to transaction, so you cannot manage transactions inside a function where you can manage transactions inside a store procedure. So you cannot call procedure from a function, but you can call function from a store procedure. You can call a function using select statement, but you cannot call a procedure using select statement. So these are all the major difference between function and store procedure. So let me repeat: a function has return type, should have return type and returns the value. When it comes to procedure, can have, cannot have, it is an optional thing. So you cannot use the DML statements here. Only select query is allowed. When it comes to DML, when it comes to procedure, you can use DML statements. So transaction wise, function will not allow transactions. When it comes to procedure, procedure allows transactions. So you cannot call function inside, you can call function inside store procedure, but you cannot call store procedure inside a function. You can call a function using select statement. You cannot call a procedure using select statement. So one more thing is both are pre-compiled. So when it comes to procedure, they are little bit like performance related issues are there. So that is not a point here. So let's get into the next thing, joins. So this is the most important questions when it comes to interview. So what are all the different types of joins? If you just see this diagram, you will understand what does it mean. So when it comes to inner join, so let's say I have a table 1, table 2. It basically takes common records in between that. So basically we will use, let me show this with an example. Okay, so let me take this example. So as you know, I have table employees, so let me make this as employee inner join department DPT. So when you use join, you should use what is the which key, which column you are going to use. So relationship between two tables, department department ID equals employee dot employee ID. So if I use this, you can see we have department ID. So let me do this one thing, employee dot name. So DPT dot department dot name. So let's see how it works. Employee dot, okay, see IT HR accounts, these are all I am using inner join here. So if I select this alone, I have 4 records. So when it comes to this, so 1 2 3 3 records are there. Let me put star here. See 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 1. So let's see what is the difference between these two things. Start from department. So let me run all these 3 queries. So I have 1 2 3. So when it comes to this, department ID 1 2 3 is there. I hope you understand what is the inner join does. It basically takes out the data common between two tables. So 1 2 3 we have. So 1 2 3. So that's why it is taking 3 records. 1 2 3 department ID 1 2 3 Uday Shankar Kavya. Okay, so let's get into right join. So right join, as you can see, whatever the records are available in the right table, so right join of that table, so that will be taken. So when it comes to left join, so just reverse of your right join. So full outer join, no matter what, it will pick up all the records. So we'll get into more detailed explanations. So inner join is SQL most common type of join. It is used to return all the rows from multiple tables where the join condition is satisfied. I just explained that. So when it comes to left join in SQL is used to return all the rows from the left table but only the matching table from the right table where the join condition is fulfilled. So let me repeat, what does it mean? So when you use left join, it basically takes out all the data from left table but only takes the data from matching data from right table. So where your condition is fulfilled. So right join is just reverse of left join. So it takes the data from, it takes all the records from right table but it takes only matching records from left table when condition is fulfilled. When it comes to full join returns all the records when there is a match in any of the tables. Therefore, it returns all the rows from the left hand side table and all the rows from the right hand side table. Okay, so that's all about joins. I have just tried simple way how you can explain. So if you explain this is fair enough for interview perspective. So one more questions for experienced people. What is CTE and temp table? So CTE means common tabular expression. So what is the difference between temp table and CTE? I just given that syntax, how you can create a temp table, how you can create a CTE. So declare, you will have to give @ symbol. It can be like, you can also give hash, double hash. If you put a double hash, it will be available over your entire session. You can call it as login instance. So I just given simple one. So declare @ you can give the name of the table, and you can give the, like, you know how to create table, right? So same way you are going to give column names, ID, employee name, and age. So, and its type, if you want to give primary key, you can also specify identity 1,1. So when it comes to CTE, it will start with. You must be aware of this symbol, semicolon, with. So emp is the name of my CTE. So column names for, so as we normally do here, EID, salary, column names for CTE, which are optional. You can give it or not required. So yes, you have to specify what does that CTE has. So select top 3 from EID, salary. So this is what the CTE. So what is the difference here is, CTE is like derived table or even like a subquery. So it does not store on the disk. So it will not have any physical existence. When it comes to temp table, it is like temporary table. It stores on the disk. You cannot create any index on CTE. So when it comes to temp table, you can create clustered index but cannot create non-clustered index. Keep this in mind. You can create clustered index when it comes to temp table. Clustered index will be created on primary key. So as I said, ID, int, identity, that you can create as that you can specify as a primary key. So scope of the CTE within the session. So let's say you have created a query, inside that you have a CTE. So that scope is limited to that. When it comes to temp table, scope of the table varies within the batch. So this is all the difference between CTE and table temp table. So next important question, what is normalization? So normalization, let's say when it comes to database designing, you should be aware of normalization. So what are the factors you are going to consider when it comes to normalization? Why we need normalization? What are all the different types of normalizations? So basically normalization is meant for performance tagging. So what do I mean? So let's say you have a table, there are plenty of duplicate records, it lacks some performance when you are doing, so there are lots of manipulation to be done. So in order to, you can collect some duplicate records. So in order to avoid all those things, you can apply normalization principle here. So if you see this image, I have added normalization and types: first normal form, second normal form, third normal form, BCNF. So let's see what are all these things. So first normal form. So I am not going to explain theory perspective here. So let's see how we can achieve through tables. So let's say I have a table: employee ID, employee name, phone number, salary. So in this, you can see phone number we are specifying with two values, something like this. So if you apply normalization, so you can get rid of these things. You can store it in a different rows. So you can see the how you can achieve one first normal form. So it will eliminate redundancy. So let's get into how we can achieve second normal form. So in this table, I have something called department ID. So EDT1, EDS2. So this one, we can basically create one more table with the different department ID. So employee ID, department ID, office location. So using department ID, so this is common. So it will basically create relationship between tables and also increase the performance. So third normal form. So in this, you can see I have made subject ID as common between two tables. So third normal form. So basically this will improve the performance and it removes redundancy. You can call it as duplicate records. So it makes your database faster, and if you want to add something extra in the future, so it will be very much manageable. So I'm not going in detail about this normalization. For interview perspective, this is more than sufficient. So let's say, what is SQL injection? So let me take an example. So you want to log into your Facebook account. There you will enter username and password. So when it comes to username and password, so as a developer you normally do, you will write query select star from user table where username is equal to some user whatever, like user input something at gmail.com. So when it comes to SQL injection, let me show what does it mean. So select star from employee where, this is what I'm talking about, where employee name is equal to Uday. So see, this is what you normally do when you are doing. So instead of that, we can use at parameter to in order to get rid of SQL injection. So how that SQL injection works, see, 1 equal to 1 if you put, so see, even though I am passing this user input, I am still giving this option. So if I give this option, so this condition always holds good because I have put r 1 always equal to 1, so you will get all the records. So this is what hacker normally targets when they are trying to log into your website. So be careful when you are using this kind of statements. So in order to overcome these things, you can basically use at parameters. So if you explain this in the interview, you will not ask any more questions with respect to SQL injection. So let me tell some points with respect to SQL injection. So SQL injection is a code injection technique that might destroy your database. SQL injection is one of the most common web hacking techniques. So it is the placement of code in SQL statements via web page input. Web page input is, so let me get into facebook.com. See, this is what. So let me something type r 1 equal to 1. That's it. Hacker will get an access to enter your database. When you return, you will get all the details. So be careful about SQL injection. If you explain this, so you are good enough that you know the concept of SQL injection. So one more simple question interview may ask, what is the difference between and in? So between operator is used to display rows based on the range of the values. So let's say you want to filter out some records between date range. I'm just giving an example, between date range between April 1st to May 1st. So when it comes to in condition operator, it is in conditional operator is used to check for the values contained in specific set of values. Let's say select star from employee where employee ID in, so 1 3 5. If you define in if you define between 1 and 5, it will pick up all the records. If you use in, you have to explicitly give the IDs 1 comma 5 comma something like that. So let me give an example. Example of between is select star from students where roll number between 10 and 50. So when it comes to example of in, select star from students where roll number in, as I said, you should explicitly mention the IDs. So let's get into the next question. So what is merge? This statement allows conditional update or insertion of data. So you have a scenario like you want to do some CRUD operation, but you are not sure whether it is a new record or update. It is already existed records. So when it comes to such scenarios, you can basically use merge. So this will take care of insert update. If the record is already there, it will update the records. If the record is not there, it will insert the record. How it will be done? Using the keyword when matched. Using this keyword, and you should specify the condition. So using this keyword, it basically takes care of above operation, update and insert. If you tell when matched, you will not ask any further questions. He may ask you to write the query so that you can basically write, you can check some Google. So when it comes to intersect, so you can fetch common records from two tables using intersect. You know how we have done UnionAll, something like that. So let's say I have a table, so ID
name, address, age, salary, year, OID, date, customer ID, amount. So I want to get common records in between two things. So when it comes to common records, you explicitly have to mention the condition. So select ID comma name. I have given the query, you can just check this. Select ID comma name comma amount date from customer, left join orders, on customer ID is equal to orders dot customer ID. So I'm joining with customer ID and ID. Intersect, select ID name, same thing I am writing. If you write this, it will pick up the common records. Even though some of them are matching, it will not pick up. So 3324. I'm using left join here. So you know already what is left join. Whenever you are using left join, whatever the tables records are there, it will pick up. So 3324 it will pick up. So intersect, you can fetch common records from two tables. So what is local and global variables? So next question will be, what do you mean by how do you define local and global variables? So local variables, these variables can be used or exist only inside the functions. These variables are not used or referred by any other function. So local will be inside that function itself. Like when it comes to C sharp, you normally write where or something inside that function. So that is similar to this. When it comes to global, application level variables, so something like that. These variables are the variables which can be accessed throughout the program, but where global variables cannot be created whenever that function is called. So this is what the difference between local and global variables. So one more question will be like, what you should know the concept of trigger. So what is basically a trigger? A SQL trigger is a database object which fires when an event occurs in a database. So what do you mean by event? So let's say event in the sense like insert, update, delete. Whenever you do whenever you insert a record into a table or update or delete, so you are basically creating a triggers. So for example, on insert and delete, update. So there are two types of triggers. So after triggers, one more is instead of triggers. So after triggers are executed after action of insert, update or delete statement. So the syntax of this create trigger on employee after insert. You can see after insert has begin. So you can do whatever you want inside your begin and end. So that is what after triggers. After the insertion or deletion or update, you can use this. So instead of triggers, so what does it mean? So it will tell the database engine to execute the trigger instead of executing the statement. So for example, an insert trigger executes when an event occurs instead of statement that would insert the values in the table. So it is just instead of trigger. So it is just like you are asking your database to execute my code instead of that other code. Yeah, this is all about triggers. If you tell the difference between what is trigger and what are the different types of trigger, so you must be knowing how to create a trigger. So if you want, you can basically check this one. So like, let me open the table. So you can create a table, new trigger. So here you can create what is the name of trigger. So on what? So on update or delete or insert. So after what? So that is what you can basically create a trigger. So like you can see, right, on which table, after what, after insert or update. So that is what. So same applies here. On v1 instead of insert, instead of delete. So something like that when it comes to instead of triggers. So what is a view? A view is a virtual table which consists of the subset of the data contained in a table. Since views are not present, it takes less space to store. So why do we need views? So let's say you want to you have a report where you are picking up the data from table every time. Instead of that, you can create a view. You can put it in. A view is a subset of query. You can call it as, it is a pre-compiled query. You can call it as. So it always holds the data. It always points to the data in the table. So view can be created on one or more tables combined, or it depends on the relationship. So this is what, so if you tell this, so that is enough. A view is a virtual table. It is a virtual table. Virtual means it does not exist, so it is just virtual, so which consists of subset of data contained in a table. What I meant to say, it it is just a pointer to the data set inside your table. So select ABC, column 1 comma column 2 from table, join something, you do something. So in whatever you are pointing that query, it is already executed. It keeps the pointer to that data. So that is what view means. So you can create views on one or more tables. There are some conditions that you will have to read SQL concepts. So one more questions will be like distinct. You can select unique records from a tables by using distinct keyword. There are multiple ways you can select unique records, but using distinct, how you can select using keyword means distinct. Select distinct student ID from student. So as I said in the beginning of primary key, when I giving example difference between primary key and unique key, I said I will be covering indexes in the coming slides. So indexes are special lookup tables. It is used to retrieve the data from the database very fast. So what do you have? Let's see in the action. So this is my table. So if you see the indexes here, there is no index except primary key clustered. So this is what, when you create a table, by default SQL creates clustered index on primary key. So index, why? Basically it improves the performance in the sense, let's say you want to search something, so it basically gives the result very faster compared to none. If you do not have primary key, it will always takes time to filter the data. So that is where index comes into picture. As I said, an index is used to speed up select queries and where classes, but it shows down the data input with insert and update statement because it has to remap the allocated keys. When you specify the index, so let's say you have 10 records, if you insert one more, so it will basically creates index. That time it takes extra time. That is why insert and update statements will take little bit extra time. So indexes can be created or dropped without affecting the data. So you can drop the indexes. So if you want to alter the table, if they have index, so that will not be allowed. So make sure that when you are creating indexes, it's fine. When you are altering the indexes, you should drop the index, then you should create the index. So an index in a database is just like an index in the book, back of a book. So let's say you have a book, in which page the contents of the topic is there, that we will be having in the index sheet, right? That is what index means. So it points the data where exactly it is stored. So there are two types of indexes. Clustered, I just told clustered is a PK. Non-clustered, for example, so you want to create a index, I'm just giving FK store reference. So let's say you have another table, there you will be having PK of the another table. So that is what I'm just giving an example. It need not to be FK only. So if you can create clustered index on more than one column. So both clustered index and non-clustered index are stored and searched as by B tree. So B tree is basically a design pattern. So I'm not sure whether you are aware or not, but still it stores the data in binary tree format. So you might be knowing like if you store the data in B tree, so there will be some starting index, final index, middle, something like that. So it basically allows us to faster the performance. When it comes to search, it will allow us to search the faster way. Yeah, let's move on to next question. So what is cursor? A cursor is SQL is a temporary work area created in system memory when a SQL statement is executed. So it is basically a temporary work area, you know, right? When it comes to MVC or something, you will be having areas, so something like that. So there is a syntax for cursor. So you will have to declare all required variables. I have given the explanation in the right hand side. So syntax of cursor is declare at variable, what is the type of that variable, so what is the name of the cursor, what is the scope, define movement, it should forward or backward, so like define basic type of cursor, define logs, so something like this. So you can just go through this. Yeah, that's all from SQL. So if you want me to add some more question, please feel free to add in the comment section. So yeah, thank you guys, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. I will be uploading more interview related questions in the coming days. Thank you for watching. Thank you. Have a good day.